The Japanese version of the curse back then can be said to be a childhood shadow for many people. Today, Brother Young will take you back to this shadow. Tell me about the American version of the curse. I hope you don't blame me. At the beginning of the story, the man stood on the balcony, looking out at nothing. I saw a simple greeting from my wife. The man jumped down from the 18th floor without hesitation. The neighbors nearby were just watching coldly, accompanied by the strange death of a man. The film officially begins. Screen rotation. Liang Zizan greets an elderly person with rigidity. The old man lives alone in a large house. Ryoko is responsible for his daily life. He coaxed the old man to the second floor to clean up as usual. Then I heard a commotion, so I came to a dark grid to check. He opened the old secret door, relying on the faint light of the lighter to enter and examine. Trembling, I looked over. Suddenly, a disheveled female ghost pinched his neck. Lift him up. I saw his feet off the ground, gradually disappearing into the dark grid. The boss can't reach the lady. I have found another female college student to take over his job temporarily. Karen brought the map to the old man's residence, pressing the doorbell with a flustered expression. But there was no response yet. He pushed the door open, the chaos on the ground. Suddenly, a pair of hands appeared on the opposite glass door. Karen, go up and check. It's the old man lying on the ground. Pacify the elderly and give them a meal. Attach vacuum cleaner. Coming to the second floor, facing you, I saw a cabinet covered in adhesive tape. There's a baby crying coming from inside. Karen quickly tore off the tape, opened the cabinet door, saw an old diary. Suddenly, a dark shadow flashed by. Looking up is a black cat. Immediately after, a dark figure slowly lifted its head. Karen was so scared that she collapsed to the ground. The little boy, covered in injuries, had a hostile look in his eyes. Scared, Karen brought her diary to the first floor, trying to unravel my doubts in my diary. After flipping over, there is a damaged photo inside. The room began to sound inexplicably again. Karen stood up to check. There is also an old photo on the table. Inside is a family photo of the little boy, but MOM's face has been gouged away. Suddenly, I heard a noise again. Turn around and look at the second floor. The little boy looked at him with integrity. After a simple conversation, the ringing of the phone made Karen nervous again. A woman's message number came from inside. I want to confirm the situation of the elderly person. Then I heard a figure in the old man's room again. Karen pushed the door open, seeing the old man talking to himself. He comforted the old man and lay down. The old man showed a frightened expression. Karen saw a cloud of long black hair floating in the air behind her. This man wants to drain the water from the bathtub. But suddenly a hand appeared inside. Grab his arm. The man sat paralyzed by fear, still holding a handful of hair in his hand. Hear a sound. A man came up to check, but he pretended to be okay. Originally, he wanted to rent out this house, and the tenant has already entered this house, due to their busy work schedule. So I brought a lady to take care of the old man. But since moving in, strange events happen one after another. First, my daughter-in-law Jenny saw a cat on the stairs. Then he appeared and carried the cat away with both hands. Jenny quickly went up to check. Follow the figure into a room. The door suddenly closed. Jenny also disappeared with it. Son Matthew returns home at night, seeing garbage in a place. Only the mother sat on the ground. So he asked his mother where Jenny was. Seeing the elderly person not responding, he came to the second floor, but I saw Jenny lying in pain on the bed. It's like being possessed by evil. Can't even say a word. He anxiously inquired. Suddenly, the little boy with a pale face next to him appeared. Matthew was startled. Ask who he is. The little boy opened his mouth and let out a moaning sound. Matthew collapsed to the ground. Meanwhile, Jenny suddenly stood up and let out a low roar, and then completely stopped breathing. Matthew has been scared stiff all over. He slowly looked up. Screen rotation. Time returns to the present. Liax's boss came over to check. The employer saw the old man lying there and had already breathed out. Karen also collapsed to the ground. Hurry to report to the police. The police began a brief inquiry. Only then did I understand that the old man's son and daughter-in-law disappeared without a trace after encountering an accident. Afterwards, Liangzu also disappeared. After inquiring, the police began to look around the room. Then I found a message on the phone. This message is Matthew's sister, Susan's police officer, who called back the previous call. I didn't expect the bell to ring in the room. Follow the bell to the second floor. After a review, found a small smartphone in that cabinet. Then I discovered a few more hairs. Flashlight up. Discovered the dark grid above. The police climbed onto the dark grid. The bodies of Matthew and his wife were found inside. And there's also a dental bed. Speaking of Matthew's sister, Susan, working as a civil servant in a building in Tokyo, he has been unable to reach his mother. I can't reach the Matthew couple either. When leaving the company after working late at night, I always feel a bit scared of something behind me. Quickly entering the stairwell, Susan, who had never received a response from her younger brother, suddenly received a call from Matthew. But after answering, there was a sound coming from inside. That's it. After hastily hanging up, he looked down on the stairs. A pair of pale hands are crawling towards him. The lights upstairs went out layer by layer. Scared, Susan rushed out of the stairwell at the last moment, quickly ran to the security room, and asked for help from the security guard. The security guard doesn't believe it. but I still decided to go up and take a look. At this moment, Susan was in panic when she saw the security guard shaking in front of the staircase. Walk in and come out safely. Susan just breathed a sigh of relief. But suddenly a terrifying scene appeared in the surveillance. A dark shadow appeared out of thin air. Susan was so scared that she hurriedly returned home. Nervous, he closed his eyes in the elevator. Something terrible has happened again. The little boy's face unexpectedly appeared in the crack of the elevator. Susan timidly returned home. Thought it was finally safe. The doorbell suddenly rings. When Susan gets nervous again, when he went to the cat's eye to check, unexpectedly, the younger brother's face appeared. He thought his savior was coming. Who knows, nightmares have just begun. Open the door and find nobody. The phone in hand rings again. Because it's still the sound of geese and geese. He ran into the room in panic. Cover oneself under a blanket. I thought the quilt barrier could isolate the breath. Next second possible, when he lifted the blanket, the female ghost is lying on his body. Grab his feet with a tug. Finally, it disappears directly. This girl is taking a shower. Next second possible, the girl is Karen. That night, I was scared by the floating female ghost, and was sent to the hospital. After leaving the hospital, I kept encountering strange things. Now he's at a loss. And that night, Ryoko's boss also saw the shadow of the little boy at work. Then Yang-zu appeared in front of him covered in blood. He nervously asked Ryoko what had happened. But I never received a response. I saw Yang-zu lift his head. Half of the face is left. So what the police saw in the dark was actually Yang-zu's gums. The police also conducted an investigation with doubts. Check the surveillance of Susan's company. After the security guard leaves, a dark shadow rises in place. The black shadow slowly walked towards the camera, then climb onto the camera, revealing two big eyes of Kozilin. The police were scared. And Karen also began investigating at this time, when searching for information about this house, saw a man. It's the man who jumped off a building at the beginning of the film. He went to the man's house. Being well informed by the hostess, only the female lead promised to show him the man's remains. And Karen did find out. Every photo of them together will show a woman. This woman is the female owner of that house, Jiayezi. Two bizarre deaths. One person. He found the police. The police told Karen. There is such a folk rumor in Japan. When someone dies in extreme sorrow or anger, those emotions will survive, becoming a stain on that place. Everything that happened will continue to reappear there. Death will become a part of that place. Anyone involved in that house, he will never let you go. After speaking these words, the police also left helplessly. He thinks that only by making the house disappear can things be understood. So he brought the old bucket, and wanted to burn it down. Who knew that the little boy appeared again lying in the water? The police saw the situation and rushed to rescue it. Unexpectedly, the boy suddenly opened his eyes. There's also a person behind me. The police quickly turned around to check on a man who pushed him into the water. It seems like the male owner of a family of 3. Screen rotation. Karen returned home. But there's no trace of my boyfriend. Only one phone message. It's mentioned that both Yang-zu and the boss have been killed. My boyfriend is afraid of Karen being killed. I went to that house alone. Upon hearing this, Karen immediately flew over. But my boyfriend couldn't be found. But I saw everything that happened before this house. The man who jumped from the building is here to find the hostess. Open the dark compartment of the cabinet. A female corpse suddenly fell down. The man was frightened and sat down on the ground. Run away in a hurry. Loon opens the child's room. Found him blocking the swing with his father's body. After the male owner of this house discovered that his wife had an affair with the man who jumped from the building, killing his wife in front of the child and hiding it in a cabinet, and then drowned his son and little black cat in the bathroom. Karen was scared. Busily ran downstairs. The figure of a female ghost appeared on the mirror unexpectedly, and then my boyfriend suddenly appeared. Got Karen. Karen hurriedly hugged him in her arms. But who knew that at this moment, the coconut slowly climbed down the stairs. Jiayezi grabs her boyfriend's leg. Took away my boyfriend. Karen opened the door to escape. Unexpectedly, behind the door appeared the head of Jiayezi. Closed the door. The coconut disappeared and disappeared. At the same time, the doors and windows were shaking. Watching my boyfriend die tragically. In a fit of anger, Karen set fire to this place and burned it down. Subsequently, the screen shifts to the hospital's morgue. Karen's boyfriend has died in the fire. But Karen was lucky enough to be saved by the fire department. Karen doesn't want to touch the mail ticket with her hand. Unexpectedly, a lot of hair spread out from under the bed. Then the female ghost appeared behind Karen. It seems that the curse has not disappeared, but it's constantly spreading.